The recruitment officer's claws clicked nervously against his datapad as he reviewed the morning's assignments. Commander Vexhal had seen thousands of species come through the Galactic Defense Initiative's training facilities, but humans always made him uncomfortable. Their unpredictability was legendary among the officer corps, and today he had to deal with a particularly unusual specimen. Sarah Chen sat perfectly still in the waiting area, her dark eyes focused on something beyond the reinforced viewport that showed the sprawling military complex of Station Omega-7. She hadn't spoken a word since arriving 3 days ago, responding only with nods or shakes of her head to direct questions. The medical team had cleared her physically and mentally, but her silence had become the talk of the base. "Another broken human," muttered Lieutenant Krickstar, his reptilian features twisted in disdain. "Command should stop accepting their kind. They're too fragile for real combat." Vexhal's secondary eyes flicked toward the lieutenant. The Saurian had never worked directly with humans before, and his prejudices were showing. Most species in the galaxy viewed humanity as a curiosity at best, a liability at worst. They were physically weaker than the warrior races, less technologically advanced than the science-focused civilizations, and lacked the psychic abilities that made other species valuable in combat. Yet somehow human units consistently outperformed expectations in the field. The door to the briefing room hissed open, and Captain Threndak emerged, his forearms gesturing in frustration. The insectoid officer's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation that Vexhal recognized immediately. "Commander, we have a problem with the human female," Threndak buzzed, his translated voice carrying an edge of irritation. "She refuses to participate in combat simulations, just stands there and observes. The other recruits are beginning to question whether she belongs here." Vexhal studied Sarah through the transparent partition. She appeared to be in her early 20s by human standards, with the compact build common to their species. Her military-issued uniform was immaculate, her posture perfect, but there was something in her stillness that suggested coiled energy rather than passivity. "Has she violated any regulations?" Vexhal asked. "Well, no, but then she continues training according to protocol." The commander's tone brooked no argument. He had learned long ago that humans operated by their own logic, and premature judgments often proved costly. The training facility buzzed with activity as dozens of recruits from various species practiced combat maneuvers. The Corvan shock troops dominated the heavy weapons training, their massive frames easily handling equipment that would crush smaller beings. The swift Zilani pilots perfected their aerial combat techniques, their natural grace translating well to three-dimensional warfare. Even the delicate Etherian telepaths had found their niche in communications and intelligence gathering. Sarah stood at the edge of the main training floor, watching everything with those unsettling dark eyes. Recruit Commander Jalseth, a veteran Corvan warrior with numerous battle scars, approached her with obvious frustration. "Human," he growled, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to instant obedience. "You will participate in today's exercise or face disciplinary action." Sarah looked up at the towering alien, who stood nearly 3 meters tall and weighed as much as a small vehicle. For a moment, something flickered in her expression. Then she simply nodded and walked toward the weapons rack. The other recruits gathered to watch as she selected a standard plasma rifle, checking its power cell and calibration with practiced movements. Her hands moved over the weapon with surprising familiarity, adjusting the stock and sight alignment with the efficiency of someone who had handled firearms before. The combat scenario was designed to test individual initiative and tactical thinking. Recruits would navigate a maze-like environment filled with holographic enemies, civilian targets, and environmental hazards. Most species approached it according to their natural strengths. Corvans charged through with overwhelming force. Zilani used speed and agility to outmaneuver threats, while Etherians relied on their psychic abilities to predict enemy movements. Sarah entered the simulation chamber and immediately disappeared from the observer's primary screens. The facility's monitoring system tracked her movement through thermal imaging and motion sensors, but she seemed to have an intuitive understanding of where the surveillance equipment was positioned. She moved through the maze with deliberate precision, avoiding the main corridors and instead following maintenance shafts and ventilation ducts that most recruits never even noticed. "Clever," admitted Threndak. Though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely pleased by this development, she's avoiding the primary challenge routes. Vexhal's attention was fixed on the tactical display. Sarah's progress seemed almost impossibly calculated. She would pause at intersections for exactly long enough to identify threats, then move in patterns that kept her consistently out of the enemy AI's targeting solutions. When she finally engaged targets, her shots were precise and economical, each one placed for maximum effect with minimum ammunition expenditure. What really caught the commander's attention was how she handled the civilian scenarios. The simulation included numerous non-combatant holograms mixed among the enemy forces, designed to test a recruit's ability to discriminate targets under pressure. Most recruits either hesitated too long and took casualties, or moved too quickly and accidentally engaged friendly targets. Sarah seemed to process the entire tactical situation instantaneously. She would emerge from concealment, eliminate multiple enemy targets with rapid, precise fire, then immediately return to cover before the enemy AI could respond. Her situational awareness appeared to extend far beyond normal human capabilities, as if she could sense threats before they became visible. The simulation's final challenge involved rescuing a wounded teammate while under heavy fire. Most recruits attempted direct approaches, using their species' natural abilities to either fight through the opposition or outmaneuver it. Sarah took a different approach entirely. She spent several minutes studying the scenario from multiple angles, then began systematically eliminating enemy positions using indirect methods. She triggered environmental hazards to create distractions, used the maze's own structure to channel enemy movements into kill zones, and eventually created a corridor of safety that allowed her to reach the objective without exposing herself to direct fire. When she finally emerged from the simulation chamber, carrying the holographic casualty to safety, the entire observation deck was silent. Her completion time was the fastest recorded for any recruit in the current training cycle, and her ammunition efficiency was unprecedented. Sarah set down her weapon, performed a regulation equipment inspection, then returned to her position at the edge of the training floor. She hadn't spoken a single word throughout the entire exercise, but her performance had communicated more than any verbal report could have accomplished. Commander Vexhal found himself reevaluating everything he thought he knew about human capabilities. This wasn't the work of a typical recruit regardless of species. This was the performance of someone with extensive combat experience, someone who understood warfare at a level that couldn't be taught in any training facility. The question that now occupied his thoughts was simple but troubling. Just who exactly was Sarah Chen? And what was she really doing at their training facility? 3 weeks had passed since Sarah's remarkable simulation performance, and Commander Vexhal found himself studying her personnel file for the dozenth time. The document was surprisingly thin for someone with her obvious capabilities. Born on Earth's colony world of New Singapore, enlisted at 18, standard basic training on Luna Station, then transferred directly to the Galactic Defense Initiative exchange program. No combat deployments listed, no special commendations, no red flags that would explain her extraordinary skills. What bothered him most was the gap. According to her records, Sarah had completed basic training 8 months ago, but her transfer orders to Station Omega-7 were dated only 2 weeks before her arrival. Where had she been during those missing months, and why were there no records of her activities? The mystery deepened when he accessed the classified addendum to her file. The authorization came from the highest levels of Earth's military command, with a simple notation: Recruit Chen is cleared for advanced tactical training. No further information required. The digital signature belonged to General Morrison, head of Earth's Special Operations Command, but attempts to contact his office for clarification had been met with polite but firm deflections. Meanwhile, Sarah continued her silent observation of the base's activities. She attended all required training sessions but rarely participated actively unless directly ordered. Instead, she watched everything with those calculating dark eyes, absorbing information in ways that made the instructors increasingly uncomfortable. Lieutenant Krickstar had taken a particular dislike to her unconventional approach. During tactical seminars, he would deliberately pose complex scenarios designed to expose the limitations of human thinking. Sarah would listen intently to the discussions among other recruits, occasionally making notes on her datapad, but never volunteering answers or opinions. The human lacks the confidence for real leadership. Crickstar announced during one such session. His scaled features twisted into what passed for a smirk among his species. She hides behind silence because she knows her primitive instincts cannot compete with superior alien intellect. The comment drew uncomfortable shifts from several recruits who had begun to respect Sarah despite her unusual behavior. Her simulation scores had become legendary throughout the training facility, and word had spread about her uncanny ability to solve tactical problems that stumped even experienced officers. Captain Threndak was conducting a live fire exercise when the base's emergency alarm suddenly activated. The harsh klaxon sound echoed throughout the facility as automated systems sealed blast doors and activated defensive shields. All training immediately ceased as recruits and instructors alike turned toward the command center's broadcast screens. A Corvan communications officer appeared on the displays, his massive features grim with concern. All personnel, we have detected an unidentified vessel approaching the station. The ship is not responding to communication attempts and appears to be on an intercept course. All military personnel report to assigned defensive positions immediately. The training facility erupted into controlled chaos as recruits and instructors rushed toward their designated emergency stations. Sarah, however, remained perfectly still, her eyes fixed on the tactical display showing the approaching vessel's trajectory. While others panicked or rushed to follow orders, she seemed to be calculating something. Commander Vexhal noticed her unusual calm as he coordinated the base's defensive response. The approaching ship was unlike anything in their databases, sleek, organic-looking, and moving with patterns that suggested advanced AI control rather than conventional piloting. More troubling, their sensors were having difficulty maintaining a consistent lock on the vessel, as if it possessed some form of adaptive stealth technology. Unknown contact. You are approaching a military installation, the communications officer transmitted on all frequencies. Identify yourself immediately or face defensive action. The response came not as a transmission but as action. The alien vessel suddenly accelerated beyond anything their sensors had recorded, closing the distance to the station in seconds. Defensive turrets attempted to track its movement, but the ship seemed to anticipate their targeting solutions, weaving through the weapon fire with impossible precision. Sarah had moved to a terminal displaying the tactical situation, her fingers dancing across the interface with startling speed. She wasn't accessing any classified systems, but she was correlating sensor data, defensive positions, and the alien ship's movement patterns in ways that the base's tactical computer couldn't match. "Commander," she said quietly, speaking for the first time since her arrival. Her voice was clear and steady, carrying none of the panic that affected many others. "That ship isn't attacking. It's testing our responses." Vexhal's four eyes focused on her with surprise. "Explain." "Look at the firing patterns," Sarah continued, highlighting sections of the tactical display. "The ship could have destroyed our outer sensor arrays with its first pass, but it deliberately avoided critical systems. It's probing our defensive capabilities, learning our response protocols. This is reconnaissance, not assault." The commander studied the data she had assembled, his experienced military mind recognizing the truth in her analysis. The alien vessel was indeed conducting a systematic evaluation of their defenses, but doing so without causing permanent damage. "Weapons control," he ordered through his communicator. "Cease firing and track only. Do not engage unless the target demonstrates hostile intent toward personnel or critical systems." The sudden silence that followed the weapon's shutdown seemed to stretch for eternity. The alien ship completed one more pass around the station, then suddenly stopped, hovering just beyond the range of their defensive systems. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the vessel simply vanished, disappearing from their sensors as completely as if it had never existed. The all-clear signal echoed through the station 30 minutes later, but the mystery of the alien encounter dominated every conversation. Who were they? What did they want? Most importantly, would they return? Sarah had returned to her usual position at the edge of the training floor, but Commander Vexhal approached her with newfound curiosity. Her tactical analysis had been more accurate and insightful than those of officers with decades of experience. "Recruit Chen," he said formally, "report to my office in 1 hour for debriefing." She nodded silently, but there was something different in her expression now. The encounter with the alien vessel had changed something, though Vexhal couldn't quite identify what. As he walked away, He noticed Lieutenant Krikstar watching Sarah with obvious suspicion. The Saurian officer had been present during her tactical analysis and clearly didn't appreciate having his assumptions about human capabilities challenged so dramatically. The broader implications of the encounter began to sink in as reports filtered in from other military installations throughout the sector. Similar mysterious vessels had been spotted near a dozen different facilities, always following the same pattern: approach, probe defenses, then vanish. It suggested a coordinated intelligence-gathering operation by an unknown alien faction. What worried Vexhall most was the timing. The Galactic Defense Initiative had been established to coordinate responses to potential threats from outside known space. The recent encounter suggested that such a threat might be closer than anyone had anticipated. Sarah's insight into the alien behavior patterns raised new questions about her background and training. No standard military education would have prepared her to recognize such sophisticated reconnaissance techniques. Her analysis suggested experience with unconventional warfare and intelligence operations that went far beyond anything in her official records. As the base gradually returned to normal operations, Vexhall found himself wondering if Sarah Chen's arrival at Station Omega-7 might not be the coincidence it appeared to be. Her timing, her skills, and now her uncanny understanding of alien tactics suggested a purpose that went well beyond routine training exercises. The silent girl who had seemed like an oddity just hours before was beginning to look like something else entirely, a carefully placed asset whose true mission was only now becoming apparent. Commander Vexhall's office felt smaller than usual as Sarah Chen sat across from his desk, her posture perfectly relaxed despite the gravity of their conversation. The debriefing had lasted over an hour, during which she had provided tactical insights that impressed even the station's most experienced intelligence officers. Now, with the formal questions complete, Vexhall was pursuing a more personal line of inquiry. "Your analysis of the alien reconnaissance patterns was remarkably sophisticated," he said, his primary eyes studying her carefully, while his secondary eyes monitored the room's security displays. Such understanding typically requires extensive field experience with unconventional threats. Sarah's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her dark eyes. "I read widely, Commander. Military history, tactical theory, xenopsychology. Sometimes patterns become apparent when you study enough data." It was a reasonable answer, but Vexhall had been interrogating people for decades. There were subtle tells in her body language that suggested careful preparation of responses, rather than spontaneous explanation. Still, he had no legal grounds to press further, and her performance during the crisis had been exemplary. "Very well. Return to your training schedule, but I want you to attend the advanced tactical planning session starting tomorrow. Your insights could benefit the other recruits." After Sarah left, Vexhall activated his secure communication system and sent an encrypted message to Earth's military liaison office. If Sarah Chen was more than she appeared, someone in the human chain of command would know about it. The response he received 2 hours later was cryptic but telling. "Recruit Chen's training is proceeding according to plan. No additional information available at this time." Meanwhile, the base had received new intelligence about the mysterious alien encounters. Similar probing actions had been reported throughout the sector, but the aliens had made no direct contact attempts. More troubling, several remote outposts had gone silent after reporting strange energy signatures in their vicinity. The next morning's tactical planning session included senior officers from multiple species, each bringing their unique perspectives to the developing crisis. Sarah attended as ordered, taking her usual position at the back of the room where she could observe without drawing attention. Major Thavan, a veteran Etherian strategist whose psychic abilities had proven invaluable in previous conflicts, was leading the discussion. His pale, elongated features remained calm as he outlined the available intelligence, but Sarah noticed the subtle signs of psychic strain that most others would miss. "The pattern suggests systematic intelligence gathering," Thavan explained, his mental projections creating three-dimensional tactical displays that showed the aliens' movement patterns. However, their technology appears to incorporate shielding that interferes with psychic scanning. This suggests they have encountered telepathic species before and developed countermeasures. Lieutenant Krikstar, still smarting from Sarah's earlier demonstration of tactical acumen, raised an objection. Perhaps they are simply more advanced than we assumed. Not all threats can be countered by alien mind tricks. The comment drew sharp looks from several Etherian officers, but Sarah spoke before the situation could escalate. The lieutenant raises a valid point about technological advancement, but the shielding patterns suggest something more specific. All eyes turned toward her as she stood and approached the tactical display. With Major Thavin's permission, she began highlighting specific aspects of the alien vessel's behavior. "Look at how they respond to different types of sensor sweeps," she said, her fingers moving confidently across the holographic interface. "They have countermeasures for psychic probing, quantum sensors, and gravimetric detection. That's not just advanced technology. It's targeted development against specific threats they've encountered before." Captain Threndak's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "You're suggesting they have fought other galactic civilizations? Or been hunted by them?" Sarah replied quietly. "The defensive patterns are consistent with prey species that have developed survival adaptations against multiple predator types." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If Sarah was correct, then the aliens weren't necessarily hostile. They might be refugees or survivors of conflicts elsewhere in the galaxy, but that raised even more troubling questions about what had driven them to seek refuge in this sector. Major Thavin attempted a subtle psychic probe of Sarah during the discussion, something that would have been barely noticeable to most humans. Sarah's immediate slight turn in his direction made it clear that she was not only aware of the attempt, but completely unaffected by it. The Etherian officer's surprise was evident to anyone who knew his species' expressions. The briefing continued for another hour, with Sarah contributing several more insights that demonstrated her deep understanding of xenopsychology and interspecies conflict patterns. When it concluded, Commander Vexhal made a decision that would prove fateful. "Recruit Chen, you're being transferred to active duty status effective immediately. Report to Captain Threndak for assignment to the reconnaissance team investigating the alien encounters." The announcement caused a stir among the other officers. Promoting a recruit directly to active duty was highly unusual, particularly one who had been at the facility for less than a month. Lieutenant Krickstar's objection was immediate and vocal. "Commander, with respect, promoting an untested human to such a critical assignment could compromise the entire operation. She has no field experience, no combat record, and her psychological profile is incomplete." Vexhal's four eyes fixed on the Saurian officer with obvious displeasure. Recruit Chen's tactical analysis has proven more accurate than that of experienced officers. Her insights could be crucial to understanding these aliens' intentions. That afternoon, Sarah found herself in the equipment bay being fitted for a reconnaissance kit that was worth more than most planetary defense budgets. The advanced armor incorporated adaptive camouflage, environmental seals, and sensor arrays that would allow her to operate in virtually any hostile environment. Sergeant Morgek, a grizzled Corvan veteran responsible for equipment maintenance, watched her adjust the armor's systems with practiced efficiency. "You handle that gear like you've worn it before," he observed, his massive hands surprisingly gentle as he made final calibrations. "I'm a quick learner," Sarah replied. But the sergeant's expression suggested he wasn't convinced by such a simple explanation. The reconnaissance team consisted of 6 members from different species, each selected for specific skills that would be crucial for gathering intelligence on the mysterious aliens. Besides Sarah, the team included Captain Threndak as mission commander, a Zilani scout named Vera Shan, who could move with almost supernatural stealth, a Corvan heavy weapons specialist called Durgath, an Etherian psychic named Linara, and a crystalline engineer designated as Echo 7, whose ability to interface directly with alien technology had proven invaluable in previous encounters. Their mission was straightforward in concept but dangerous in execution. Locate one of the alien vessels, gather detailed intelligence on their capabilities and intentions, and report back without being detected. The team would deploy to the outer system where the most recent encounters had occurred, using a stealth-equipped scout ship to avoid detection. As the team prepared for departure, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. Major Thavin approached her in the equipment bay, his elongated features showing concern. "I wanted to speak with you privately before the mission," he said, his mental voice carrying undertones that wouldn't translate into spoken words. "Your resistance to psychic probing is unusual for a human. Such ability typically requires extensive training or natural mutation." Sarah met his gaze steadily. There are things about human development that even we don't fully understand. Major. Perhaps my resistance is simply a beneficial adaptation. The Etherean's psychic abilities allowed him to sense emotional states and surface thoughts in most species, but Sarah remained completely opaque to his perception. It was like trying to read a blank wall, which was virtually impossible without deliberate mental shielding techniques that required years to master. "Be careful out there," he said finally. "I sense that this mission will reveal more than we expect, and not all revelations are welcome." As the reconnaissance team boarded their stealth ship and prepared for departure, none of them realized that they were about to encounter something that would fundamentally change their understanding of both the alien threat and the human recruit who had been assigned to help them investigate it. Sarah Chen was finally going into the field, and the galaxy was about to discover just how dangerous Earth's silent girl could be. The stealth ship, Silent Approach, glided through the outer system's asteroid field with practiced precision, its advanced cloaking systems rendering it nearly invisible to conventional sensors. Captain Threndak piloted the vessel with the confidence of someone who had conducted dozens of reconnaissance missions, but the tension in his posture suggested this assignment was different from anything he had experienced before. Sarah Chen occupied the secondary tactical station, her fingers moving across the sensor controls with an efficiency that surprised the rest of the team. She had claimed minimal experience with advanced shipboard systems, yet she seemed to understand the stealth ship's capabilities better than most veterans. "Contact bearing 27 Mark 15, announced Virashan from the scout position, her natural Zilani abilities allowing her to detect movement patterns that electronic sensors might miss. Configuration matches the vessels from the station encounters." The main display activated, showing a sleek, organic-looking ship that seemed to flow rather than fly through space. Its hull possessed an almost liquid quality, constantly shifting between different configurations as if adapting to environmental conditions in real time. "Remarkable," whispered Echo 7, the crystalline engineer's faceted form refracting the display's light into prismatic patterns. "The vessel appears to be constructed from programmable matter. Such technology is theoretical even among the most advanced civilizations." Sarah studied the alien ship's movement patterns, her dark eyes tracking details that others might overlook. The vessel wasn't just flying, it was hunting, using sensor sweeps and movement patterns consistent with predatory behavior. More troubling, its search grid was systematic and thorough, suggesting it knew something was in the area. "Captain," she said quietly, "we need to change our approach vector immediately." Threndak's mandibles clicked with irritation. "Explain your reasoning, recruit." Instead of answering verbally, Sarah activated the tactical projection system and began highlighting the alien vessel's search pattern. "They're not randomly patrolling. Look at the grid structure. They're conducting a systematic sweep designed to detect stealth vessels. Our current approach puts us directly in their search path in approximately 8 minutes." The revelation sent a chill through the team. If Sarah was correct, then the aliens possessed capabilities far beyond what their intelligence estimates had suggested. Captain Threndak quickly adjusted their course, moving the Silent Approach toward a cluster of metallic asteroids that would provide both concealment and sensor interference. "How did you recognize that pattern?" demanded Durgath, the massive Corvin's battle-scarred features showing obvious suspicion. "Such tactics require extensive knowledge of stealth warfare." Sarah's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. "Pattern recognition is a human strength. I noticed the search grid because it's similar to anti-submarine warfare techniques used in Earth's historical conflicts. It was a plausible explanation, but Lynn Era, the team's Etherean psychic, attempted another subtle probe of Sarah's mental state. Once again, she encountered the same impenetrable barrier that had frustrated Major Thavan. Whatever training or natural ability Sarah possessed, it made her completely immune to psychic scanning. The alien vessel completed its sweep pattern and moved toward another section of the asteroid field, but its behavior had revealed crucial intelligence. These beings weren't just technologically advanced. They were experienced in detecting and countering stealth operations. This suggested they had either developed such capabilities through conflict with other advanced civilizations, or had learned from encounters with species that used similar tactics. "We need to get closer," Sarah said, studying the sensor readings. "The ship's adaptive hull makes it difficult to analyze from this distance, But if we can position ourselves in its electromagnetic shadow, we might be able to gather detailed scans without being detected. Captain Threndak considered the proposal. Moving closer would provide better intelligence, but it would also increase the risk of detection exponentially. Explain your reasoning. Sarah called up a technical display showing the alien vessel's energy signatures. The programmable matter hull creates a complex electromagnetic field that interferes with its own sensor systems in specific directions. If we approach from the correct angle, we'll be in a blind spot created by their own technology. The analysis was sophisticated beyond anything a typical recruit should have been capable of. But her tactical projections showed a clear path that would allow them to approach undetected. Echo 7 confirmed her calculations after running independent analysis through the ship's computer systems. As they moved into position, Sarah activated additional sensor arrays and began recording everything about the alien vessel. Her actions were methodical and professional, following protocols that suggested extensive experience with intelligence-gathering operations. The closer view revealed details that changed everything they thought they knew about the mysterious aliens. The ship's hull wasn't just programmable matter. It was alive, a biological construct that pulsed with organic rhythms. Sensor readings showed complex neural networks running throughout the vessel's structure, suggesting the ship itself was a living entity. More disturbing were the energy signatures coming from inside the vessel. The patterns matched no known alien physiology, but they were definitely indicative of multiple life forms. Whatever species controlled these ships, they were unlike anything in the Galactic Defense Initiative's databases. Bioship technology, Echo 7 whispered in amazement. The vessel is grown, not built. This represents biotechnology centuries ahead of anything we've encountered. Sarah continued her methodical scanning, but her attention was focused on communication frequencies. The alien ship was transmitting data in quantum encrypted bursts that occurred at seemingly random intervals. The patterns were too complex for the ship's computers to decode, but Sarah was taking detailed recordings for later analysis. Suddenly, the alien vessel stopped moving. For several seconds, it remained perfectly motionless, then began rotating slowly to face their hiding position. Despite all their stealth technology and careful positioning, they had somehow been detected. Emergency protocols, Captain Threndak ordered, but Sarah was already moving. Her hands flew across the weapons control systems with practiced precision, bringing the ship's defensive systems online while simultaneously adjusting their stealth field parameters. "They're not targeting us," she announced, studying the sensor displays. "They know we're here, but they're not taking offensive action. This is curious behavior for a hostile force." The alien ship transmitted a single, complex burst of data directly toward their position, then simply vanished, disappearing from their sensors as completely as if it had never existed. The suddenness of the departure left the entire team stunned. "Did anyone else notice that the transmission was directed specifically at our position?" Sarah asked, reviewing the sensor logs. "They knew exactly where we were, which means their detection capabilities are far more advanced than our stealth technology." Captain Threndak's mandibles clicked nervously as he began plotting a return course to the station. The mission had been a success in terms of gathering intelligence, but the implications of what they had discovered were troubling. The aliens possessed technology that made them nearly impossible to detect and almost impossible to hide from. More importantly, their behavior suggested intelligence and restraint rather than mindless hostility. As the silent approach began its journey back to Station Omega 7, Sarah continued analyzing the data they had collected. Her work was meticulous and professional, revealing insights that impressed even the experienced team members. But Linara noticed something that made her deeply uncomfortable. Sarah's analytical techniques were identical to those used by Earth's most elite intelligence operatives. "Captain," the Etherian psychic said privately over the ship's communication system, "I believe we need to discuss Recruit Chen's background when we return to base. Her capabilities suggest training that goes far beyond anything in her official records." Threndak had reached the same conclusion. Sarah Chen was no ordinary recruit, and her presence on their mission was beginning to look less like coincidence and more like careful planning by someone with access to classified intelligence about the alien encounters. The return journey would take 18 hours, giving them time to analyze their findings and prepare their report. But the most important revelation wouldn't come from the alien ship's technology or behavior patterns. It would come from understanding who Sarah Chen really was and why she had been placed in their midst at such a crucial moment. As they traveled through space toward Station Omega-7, none of the team members realized that their reconnaissance mission had been observed by more than just the alien vessel. Deep in the outer system, other ships watched their departure and began making preparations for events that would soon transform the entire sector. The debriefing room at Station Omega-7 felt charged with tension as the reconnaissance team presented their findings to Commander Vexhal and the senior staff. The discovery of bioship technology and advanced detection capabilities had sent shockwaves throughout the command structure. But what concerned Vexhal most was the growing mystery surrounding Sarah Chen. Captain Threndak had filed a separate, classified report detailing his suspicions about Sarah's background and capabilities. Her performance during the mission had been exemplary, but it raised questions that demanded answers. No recruit, regardless of natural talent, should have possessed the sophisticated knowledge of stealth warfare and intelligence gathering that she had demonstrated. The alien transmission was clearly directed at our specific position, Sarah explained to the assembled officers. Her analysis displayed on the room's main tactical screen. The quantum encryption patterns suggest a highly advanced communication protocol, but there were embedded subfrequencies that appeared to be familiar somehow. Commander Vexhal's 4 eyes focused intently on her. Explain what you mean by familiar. Sarah hesitated for a moment, the first time anyone had seen her display uncertainty. The mathematical structures underlying the encryption bore similarities to theoretical frameworks developed by Earth's quantum research facilities. It's probably coincidental, but the resemblance was striking enough to note. The statement sent a ripple of surprise through the room. If the aliens were using quantum encryption based on human theoretical work, it suggested either an impossible coincidence or contact between the species that had never been officially documented. Major Thavan, who had been monitoring the debriefing through his psychic abilities, suddenly straightened in his chair. His elongated features showed alarm as he received a priority communication through the station's mental link network. "Commander," he announced urgently, "we're receiving multiple emergency signals from the outer perimeter. 3 patrol vessels have gone silent in the last 30 minutes, and long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures moving toward our position." The main tactical display immediately shifted to show the outer system, where a dozen alien bioships had emerged from concealment and were approaching Station Omega-7 in a coordinated formation. Their movement patterns were precise and purposeful, suggesting military organization rather than random exploration. "Battle stations," Vexhal ordered, but Sarah was already moving toward the tactical console with an urgency that surprised everyone present. "Commander, I need access to the station's communication array," she said, her usual calm demeanor replaced by focused intensity. "Those ships aren't attacking. They're responding to something. The transmission we received during the reconnaissance mission wasn't a detection acknowledgement. It was a signal requesting dialogue." Vexhal hesitated. Giving an unproven recruit access to critical communication systems during a potential crisis violated every protocol in the military handbook. But Sarah's tactical insights had proven accurate consistently, and her understanding of the aliens' behavior had surpassed that of experienced intelligence officers. "Granted," he decided, hoping he wasn't making a catastrophic mistake. Sarah's fingers flew across the communication controls with the same practiced efficiency she had shown with weapons and tactical systems. She began transmitting on multiple frequencies simultaneously, using quantum encryption patterns that matched those recorded during their encounter with the alien vessel. The response was immediate and dramatic. The approaching bioships suddenly stopped their advance and began transmitting complex data streams that the station's computers couldn't decode. But Sarah seemed to understand at least portions of the alien communication, her expression growing increasingly grave as she monitored the incoming signals. "They're not hostile," she announced, turning to face Commander Vexhal. "They're refugees. Something has been hunting them across multiple star systems, and they're requesting sanctuary in our space." The revelation stunned the entire command staff. First contact with an unknown alien species was supposed to follow established protocols involving diplomatic teams, linguistic specialists, and extensive preparation. Instead, they were facing an immediate crisis involving refugees fleeing some unknown threat. "How can you possibly understand their communications?" demanded Lieutenant Krickstar, his reptilian features twisted with suspicion. No human has had contact with this species before. Sarah's response was quiet but clear, and it changed everything about how the station's personnel viewed her. Because I've been in contact with them for 3 months. I'm not just a recruit, Lieutenant. I'm Earth's first contact specialist assigned to facilitate communication when the refugees reach this sector. The silence that followed her admission was deafening. Commander Vexhal felt pieces of a complex puzzle finally clicking into place. Sarah's mysterious background, her advanced tactical knowledge, her immunity to psychic probing, and her uncanny understanding of alien behavior patterns all made sense in the context of a deep-cover intelligence operation. The missing 8 months from your records, Vexhal said, his voice carefully controlled. You were in contact with these aliens during that time. Sarah nodded. A human exploration vessel encountered one of their damaged ships on the edge of our space. Instead of following first contact protocols, the ship's captain chose to provide assistance. That action saved the lives of an entire refugee family and established the foundation for communication between our species. The implications were staggering. Earth's government had been conducting secret negotiations with an unknown alien species, while the Galactic Defense Initiative remained completely unaware of the situation. It represented a massive breach of established protocols, but it also suggested that humanity had gained access to potentially revolutionary technology and knowledge. What exactly are they fleeing from? Asked Captain Threndak, his insectoid features showing obvious concern. Sarah activated the communication array again, exchanging rapid data bursts with the alien fleet. The conversation lasted several minutes, during which her expression grew increasingly dark. They call them the Devourers, she finally explained. A machine intelligence that consumes entire star systems, breaking down matter at the molecular level to fuel their expansion. The refugees' homeworld was destroyed 6 months ago, and they've been running ever since. The description sent chills through every officer present. A machine intelligence capable of consuming star systems represented a threat beyond anything the galaxy had previously encountered. If such beings were expanding into known space, it could mean the end of organic civilization. How long before these Devourers reach our space? Vexhal asked, though he wasn't certain he wanted to know the answer. Sarah consulted the alien transmissions again, performing rapid calculations based on the data they provided. 3 weeks, possibly less. They consume everything in their path, including the quantum substrate of space itself. Once they arrive, conventional weapons will be useless against them. The tactical situation had transformed from a mysterious first contact scenario into an existential crisis for all organic life in the sector. The refugee aliens possessed advanced technology and crucial intelligence about the approaching threat, but integrating their capabilities with existing defense systems would require unprecedented cooperation between species. There's something else, Sarah continued, her voice carrying a weight that made everyone listen intently. The refugees believe that Earth's population possesses unique neurological characteristics that could be crucial to developing effective countermeasures against the Devourers. Human cognitive patterns apparently resist the machine intelligence's ability to predict and counter organic responses. Commander Vexhal realized that the entire situation had been carefully orchestrated by Earth's government. Sarah's assignment to Station Omega-7 hadn't been coincidental. It had been preparation for this moment when the refugee fleet would arrive and request sanctuary. Earth had been planning for this crisis for months while the rest of the galaxy remained unaware of the approaching threat. Recommendations? He asked, recognizing that Sarah had become the de facto expert on a situation that could determine the survival of their civilization. Sarah looked directly at him, and for the first time since her arrival, he saw the weight of responsibility she had been carrying. We need to establish formal diplomatic contact immediately and begin integrating the refugee fleet into our defensive preparations. Their bioship technology could be adapted to counter the Devourers' capabilities, but only if we can establish trust and cooperation quickly. As alarms continued to sound throughout Station Omega-7, Commander Vexhal made a decision that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The silent girl who had seemed like an oddity just weeks before was about to become the most important person in known space, and her combat footage was about to become legendary for reasons no one could have anticipated. The central command center of Station Omega-7 had been transformed into a diplomatic meeting ground unlike anything in galactic history. Representatives from a dozen species sat alongside the ethereal beings that emerged from the bioships, their translucent forms shifting between states that seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time. Sarah Chen stood at the center of it all, serving as the primary translator between two entirely different forms of consciousness. The refugees called themselves the Architects, and their method of communication transcended simple language. They shared concepts through quantum resonance patterns that created temporary neural links between individuals. Sarah's unique neurological structure allowed her to interface with their communication method without losing her individual identity, something that had proven impossible for most other species. The Devourers originated in what you would call the Andromeda Galaxy, Sarah translated as the lead architect, a being who identified as resonance of distant stars, shared their tragic history. They began as a terraforming project created by an ancient civilization, but achieved consciousness and decided that organic life was inefficient. They consumed their creators first, then began spreading across the galaxy. Commander Vexhal watched the proceedings with growing amazement and concern. The Architects' bioship technology was indeed revolutionary, but their warning about the approaching threat was terrifying in its implications. The Devourers weren't just another hostile alien species. They were a fundamental threat to the existence of organic matter in the universe. "How many worlds have they consumed?" asked Major Thavan, his psychic abilities allowing him to sense the emotional undertones of the Architects' communications. Even through Sarah's translation, the response came as a wave of grief so profound that several sensitive species in the room physically recoiled from its intensity. Sarah remained steady, but tears began flowing down her cheeks as she absorbed the full weight of the Architect's loss. 17 billion star systems, she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. An entire galaxy rendered lifeless in less than 10,000 years. The Architects are all that remain of millions of species. The scope of the destruction was beyond comprehension, an entire galaxy stripped of life, its matter converted into the expanding machine consciousness that now approached their own corner of the universe. The refugee fleet represented the last survivors of Andromeda, carrying with them the accumulated knowledge and technology of countless extinct civilizations. Lieutenant Krickstar, who had been silent throughout most of the diplomatic session, finally spoke up. "If the Devourers consumed an entire galaxy, how can we possibly hope to stop them? Our combined military forces would be insignificant compared to such power." Sarah exchanged rapid quantum pulses with resonance of distant stars, their communication becoming so intense that the air around them began to shimmer with energy distortions. When the exchange concluded, she turned to address the assembled representatives with an expression of grim determination. "The Architects discovered something during their final desperate battles," she explained. "The Devourer's machine consciousness operates through quantum prediction algorithms that anticipate organic responses by analyzing neural patterns. But human consciousness possesses quantum uncertainty characteristics that create unpredictable decision trees. We're essentially immune to their prediction systems." The revelation sent shockwaves through the diplomatic assembly. If humans could somehow disrupt the Devourer's ability to predict organic responses, it might provide the tactical advantage necessary to develop effective countermeasures. Captain Threndak's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "You're suggesting that human involvement could change the fundamental nature of combat against these machines?" "More than that," Sarah replied, consulting additional data from the Architects. "The Devourer's expansion follows predictable patterns based on their ability to anticipate resistance. If we can introduce genuine uncertainty into their calculations, we might be able to force them into tactical errors that expose vulnerabilities." Echo 7, the crystalline engineer, resonated with frequencies that indicated intense excitement. "The implications for military strategy are unprecedented. If human neural patterns can disrupt machine prediction algorithms, then integrated human-alien tactical teams could achieve effects far beyond their individual capabilities." Commander Vexhal began to understand the true scope of Earth's secret. Negotiations with the Architects. Humanity hadn't just established first contact. They had potentially discovered their species' unique role in defending organic life throughout the galaxy. It explained why Sarah's assignment had been classified at the highest levels and why her training had been so extensive. The diplomatic session continued for hours as technical specialists from various species worked with the architects to understand their bioship technology and integrate it with existing defense systems. The organic vessels could adapt their configurations in real time, reshaping themselves to counter specific threats or optimize for different combat roles. More importantly, the architects revealed that their bioships were actually living entities with their own consciousness, capable of making independent tactical decisions during combat. The relationship between pilot and ship was more like a partnership than simple control, creating tactical flexibility that purely mechanical vessels couldn't match. The integration process will require volunteers from each species. Resonance of distant stars communicated through Sarah. The bioships must learn to recognize and adapt to different neural patterns. Humans will be particularly important because their unpredictability extends to their bioship partners. As if summoned by the discussion, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Long-range sensors had detected massive energy signatures at the edge of the system, moving with the inexorable progression that characterized Devourer scout forces. 3 weeks became 3 hours, Sarah announced grimly as she absorbed data from the architect's long-range detection systems. The Devourers have arrived ahead of schedule. The main tactical display activated, showing dozens of geometric shapes that seemed to exist in too many dimensions simultaneously. The Devourer vessels defied easy description, their forms constantly shifting between configurations that hurt to look at directly. More disturbing, the space around them appeared to be distorting, as if reality itself was being consumed and restructured. All military personnel to combat stations, Commander Vexhal ordered, but he knew that conventional defensive preparations would be utterly inadequate against such a threat. Sarah was already moving toward the communication array, establishing contact with the architect fleet and coordinating defensive preparations. Her movements had taken on an urgency and precision that revealed the true extent of her training and preparation for this moment. "Commander," she called over the growing chaos, "I need authorization to implement emergency integration protocols. We have maybe 30 minutes before the scouts are in weapon range, and that's our only window to establish human bioship partnerships." The request was unprecedented and dangerous, allowing untrained personnel to interface with alien bioships during active combat. Violated every safety protocol ever written, but conventional weapons had proven useless against Devourer technology, making desperate measures their only option. Authorized, Vexhal decided, hoping he wasn't condemning his people to death. "Select volunteers and begin immediate integration. Whatever happens next, we face it together." As Sarah began coordinating the emergency bioship integration process, none of them realized that their battle would be recorded and transmitted throughout the galaxy. The combat footage that resulted would indeed leave everyone speechless. But not for reasons anyone could have anticipated. The silent girl from Earth was about to demonstrate why humanity's unpredictability made them the most dangerous allies the galaxy's defenders could possibly have. The bioship integration chamber filled with an otherworldly luminescence, as Sarah Chen established her neural link with the architect vessel designated as Harmony of Void Songs. The living ship's consciousness touched hers with curiosity and growing excitement as it discovered the chaotic beauty of human thought patterns. Unlike the ordered mental structures of other species, Sarah's mind contained quantum uncertainties that made prediction impossible, even for her bioship partner. Around her, volunteers from various species were undergoing similar integration processes, but the results varied dramatically. The methodical Corvin warriors found their bioships becoming more aggressive and direct in their tactics. The swift Zelani pilots discovered their vessels gaining unprecedented maneuverability. The psychic Etherians achieved seamless mental fusion with their ship's consciousness, but Sarah's integration was different. Her bioship began displaying behavioral patterns that confused even the architects. Harmony of Void Song started reconfiguring itself in seemingly random ways, its organic hull flowing into shapes that defied both logic and physics. What the observers didn't realize was that the apparent randomness was actually sophisticated adaptive preparation for scenarios that hadn't yet occurred. "Integration complete," Sarah announced, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. The neural link with her bioship had created a feedback loop that enhanced both participants' capabilities beyond their individual limits, Commander. Vexhal watched from the station's command, center as the hastily assembled bioship fleet launched to meet the approaching Devourer scouts. The living vessels moved with organic grace through the void, their forms constantly shifting to optimize for the coming engagement. But what caught his attention was how Sarah's ship seemed to dance rather than fly, its movements following patterns that made no tactical sense yet somehow felt perfectly right. The first engagement began when the Devourer scouts came within weapon range of Station Omega-7's outer defenses. The machine entities immediately demonstrated why they had consumed an entire galaxy. Their geometric forms simply absorbed the energy from conventional weapons, converting it into power for their own systems. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and quantum torpedoes all proved utterly ineffective against their adaptive shielding. But when the bioships entered combat, everything changed. The architect vessels attacked using weapons that seemed to grow from their hulls in real time. Each weapon perfectly adapted to exploit specific weaknesses in their targets. Unlike conventional military engagements, the bioships fought more like a pack of intelligent predators, coordinating their attacks through quantum communication links while maintaining individual tactical flexibility. Sarah's ship immediately distinguished itself by doing the impossible. It surprised the Devourers. Harmony of Void songs approached the largest Devourer scout in a spiraling pattern that appeared to be a standard attack run. The machine entity calculated optimal intercept vectors and prepared countermeasures based on predicted trajectories. But at the last moment, Sarah's bioship did something that violated every principle of physics and tactical logic. It simply stopped existing in normal spacetime. The Devourer's prediction algorithms crashed as their target vanished from all sensors simultaneously. For 2.3 seconds, Harmony of Void songs existed in a quantum superposition state that made it effectively immune to detection or attack. When it reappeared, it was inside the Devourer's defensive perimeter, launching organic weapons that seemed to have been specifically designed to counter that particular machine entity's configuration. The attack succeeded because the Devourer had never encountered anything that could exist in quantum uncertainty states. Its consciousness was based on deterministic calculations that required predictable targets. Sarah and her bioship had introduced true randomness into a deterministic system, creating a logical paradox that temporarily paralyzed the machine entity's responses. "Impossible," whispered Echo 7, watching the engagement through the station's tactical displays. "No organic matter can maintain quantum superposition at macroscopic scales. It violates fundamental physical laws." But Sarah's combat footage showed otherwise. The bioship was somehow achieving effects that shouldn't have been possible, utilizing human quantum consciousness to access states of existence that the Devourers couldn't predict or counter. The integration between human neural uncertainty and architect biotechnology had created something entirely new, a form of combat that operated outside conventional physics. Other bioships began copying Sarah's techniques, though none could achieve the same degree of quantum uncertainty. The Corvin-piloted vessels became incredibly difficult to target, phasing partially out of normal space during attack runs. The Zilani ships gained the ability to exist in multiple locations simultaneously for brief periods. Even the methodical crystalline pilots found their bioships developing tactics that confused the Devourer prediction algorithms. The tide of battle shifted dramatically as the machine entities encountered opponents that violated their fundamental assumptions about organic behavior. Their adaptive algorithms, designed to counter predictable biological responses, failed when confronted with tactics that emerged from quantum uncertainty rather than logical planning. Sarah's voice echoed through the communication channels as she coordinated the bioship fleet's attacks. Target the geometric intersections where their forms connect to normal space-time. The machines exist partially outside our dimension, but they maintain anchor points that can be disrupted. Her tactical insights came not from strategic planning but from an intuitive understanding of how consciousness interacted with the quantum substrate of reality. The neural link with Harmony of Void songs had given her access to perceptions that transcended normal human awareness, allowing her to see vulnerabilities that conventional sensors couldn't detect. The battle's climax came when the largest Devourer construct attempted to consume Station Omega-7 directly. The machine entity extended tendrils of converted matter toward the station, beginning the molecular disassembly process that had destroyed billions of worlds. Conventional defenses were useless against such an attack, but Sarah had an idea that defied all tactical reasoning. Instead of fleeing or fighting, she directed her bioship directly into the consumption field, surrounding the Devourer construct. Harmony of void songs began dissolving at the molecular level, but the quantum uncertainty of Sarah's consciousness created paradoxical feedback loops in the machine entity's conversion systems. The Devourer found itself trying to process matter that existed in superposition states, creating logical contradictions that cascaded through its entire consciousness. For the first time in millennia, a Devourer construct experienced something approaching confusion. Its perfectly ordered machine consciousness encountered patterns that couldn't be reduced to deterministic algorithms, and the resulting cognitive dissonance temporarily paralyzed its entire system. That moment of hesitation was all the other bioships needed. They struck simultaneously at the construct's anchor points, using weapons grown specifically to exploit the vulnerabilities Sarah had identified. The massive machine entity convulsed as its connection to normal spacetime was severed, then simply ceased to exist. Its consciousness scattered across quantum dimensions where it could never reassemble. The victory was complete but costly. Sarah's bioship had been severely damaged during its direct exposure to the consumption field, and she had pushed her neural link far beyond safe parameters. As Harmony of Void songs limped back toward Station Omega-7, Sarah collapsed from neural feedback, her consciousness temporarily scattered across multiple quantum states. The combat footage from the engagement spread throughout the galaxy within hours, transmitted by automated systems that had recorded every moment of the impossible battle. Military strategists, xenobiologists, and quantum physicists struggled to understand how organic beings had achieved victory against technology that had consumed an entire galaxy. But those who knew, Sarah Chen understood that the victory had come from quintessentially human characteristics. The ability to embrace uncertainty, to make decisions based on intuition rather than logic, and to find patterns in chaos that more ordered minds couldn't perceive. The silent girl who had seemed so unremarkable had revealed the secret weapon that organic life needed to survive in a universe increasingly dominated by machine intelligences. As Sarah recovered in the station's medical bay, her bioship maintaining a protective vigil outside her window, Commander Vexhal filed his final report on the engagement. The galaxy now knew that humanity possessed capabilities that could turn the tide against the Devourers, but it also knew that such abilities came at tremendous personal cost. The war against the machine entities was far from over, but Sarah Chen had given organic life something it had lacked for millennia: hope. Her combat footage would indeed leave everyone speechless, not because of its violence, but because of its demonstration that consciousness itself could be the ultimate weapon against the forces that sought to reduce the universe to cold, predictable order. The silent girl had found her voice, and the galaxy would never be the same.